think it's time to welcome our first keynote, or our keynote speaker and presenter, and my guest, Jim Lewis. Jim, it's great to see you this morning. We briefly chatted before going live here. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. Really appreciate it. We met each other a couple times at conferences recently, last 6 months. Like we met in September at the Silver Summit, or is the Silver Symposium, I think, in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Idaho is Coeur d'Alene, not Spokane, Washington. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. There's the state line right between.
They're moving the next one to Spokane, though, to a great Indian casino. It's close to the airport, so I'm looking forward to going.
Because saves you $60 on an Uber ride to get out to Coeur d'Alene. So,
yeah, true.
And we also saw each other just in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago at the One-to-One Mining Conference. So it was great to catch up there as well. And I appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's easy for me. I'm over in Orlando, Florida, so it's 9 a.m. here, so I don't have to get up early. It's just a normal morning. Not like you guys in Vancouver.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate it, regardless of the time. And you're the co-founder of Wall Street Silver. Like we're not going to go back much into the history of Wall Street Silver. I think everybody knows how it all started and how it got set up. But maybe to set the scene a little bit, to talk before we talk more macro silver and precious metals. How has the community matured since you sort of started Wall Street Silver? What has changed? Have the discussions changed at all?
Well, it started off with a lot of excitement when silver was, running up to close to 30 back a year ago. I want to say, late January, early February of 2021. And there was a lot of excitement. We were about to break out, get above 30, go to 100, right? Everyone was like, this is it. It was all crazy. But then, reality hit, and we've been sort of in this downward to sideways trend. We got as low as 22 in the past year, I think briefly into the $21 US dollar range. And now we're back up to 20. Everyone is hoping that, silver and gold and will take off. But I think people are becoming more patient and more realistic that it's not a short-term squeeze, that this is more of a long-term investment to protect yourself. And a lot of people are taking a hard look at a lot of these commodity stocks. If you want the true leverage, the true torque in this game, you have a certain portion in the physical metals and then a certain portion in the exploration and junior miners. And that's where I think a lot of people are right now. It's just preparing because we know it's coming eventually.
Interesting. Yeah, we're going to drill deeper on that topic, but you mentioned they're now starting to look more at the mining stocks, like the exploration stocks as well. Like what has triggered that? Because before, like 12 months ago, it was all physical. Nobody cared about the juniors.
We did a lot of polling of our audience, both on Twitter and on Reddit and on YouTube. We've run polls, and I'd say about 70% of our audience, it was already into mining stocks. It was never purely about physical. A lot of people, yes, it's a physical stacker community. These people want to own physical silver. It's a very varied audience. Some people are planning for the apocalypse and a full currency monetary reset. A lot of people are just about an investment to make money. So, you can't categorize Wall Street Silver's audience in just one bucket, right? There's a lot of people paying attention for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, it's a massive community. Just on Reddit alone, you have 186,000 members of your group. Yeah. I think on Twitter, when we met in Las Vegas, you had 80,000 followers on Twitter. Now you're at 95.6 thousand. You're just hockey sticking right now. It's fantastic to see. YouTube as well, 45,000. You have a massive it's a massive audience. So it's interesting to hear that they're actually also looking at mining stocks, because for me, junior mining is just a small sector.
Yeah. The audience is definitely what we've gathered for Wall Street Silver. I won't even call it an audience. I want to call it more of a community, because that's really what Reddit is. It's a community of people who just are into the subject, and we've gathered them on Reddit. Mostly on Reddit, 187,000 it just reached. Probably will reach 200,000 within the next 30 days or so at the rate it grows. Twitter, like you said, it's off the charts. It grows about 15,000 a month. It'll reach 100,000 probably in the next week or so, the way it's growing, and probably 200,000 by the end of the year, the way the Twitter audience is growing. So we've really, I think the Wall Street Silver social media group of platforms obviously is the biggest set for precious metals out there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. Like, have you we've seen AMC and Highcroft Mining, that transaction? Like, what has that sparked within the community? Have you seen the reaction? Because of course, it's silver. That deal was more of a gold deal, but of course, it was a meme stock, which sort of triggered the whole Wall Street silver movement, right? So, how was the feedback in the community there?
Well, that was really funny because it's, WallStreetBets started the whole meme stock thing back with Gamestop and AMC. Funny enough. Back a year ago, and Wall Street Silver split off from WallStreetBets primarily because they didn't want to talk about silver or gold issues. They wanted to purely focus on GameStop and AMC and the meme stocks, and they felt it was a distraction. And then AMC comes along and buys a gold mining stock, or buys a huge chunk of it. There was a lot of ridicule on Twitter. Did you get the same sense? There was a lot of ridicule about the deal, like, this is crazy, this is silly. But then at the same time, Eric Sprott, who's a very serious guy, he put a lot of money into that deal also.
It's been an interesting discussion, absolutely, because a lot of the discussion I've seen on Twitter was from the technical side. Like, of course, Eric Sprott wants to make money, and he's fantastic at doing it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a billionaire, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, he sees an opportunity teaming up with AMC to inject a ton of liquidity in that pretty much dead stock. It was a SPAC that died. They stopped mining back in November, I hear, and it's just a difficult story. So he's in the market to make money, right? So,
I don't know enough about that project to really say anything intelligent about it. I've never looked at the company or any of their drill results. I got to assume Eric Sprott did, though. I mean, so I just don't know what to say about it.
I don't know. Like, sometimes I hear he just does stuff on a whim as well. So I'm not saying he doesn't do any due diligence. If you put $22 million in a deal, it's like at least read a news release or something, right?
Yeah.
So
Eric has his own geologist, I think, who worked for him full time. So I think he does have the capability to do some real due diligence.
No, it's been interesting because it's a low grade project in Nevada. Although low grade in Nevada works if you can make the economics work, obviously. So it's been interesting. So a split off of Wall Street bets. Like we've seen, I think one of the first stocks that sort of got the squeeze was First Majestic. Right?
Yeah, at the time back in January of 2021, First Majestic had like a 40% of the shares were short at that time. And it was a good play for a short squeeze at the time. And if I recall, it ran from something like 9 up to 20 into the low to mid 20s briefly. So the short squeeze did work on First Majestic, but yeah, it was played out and then it came back down like most short squeezes do. But yeah, it worked. And that's what we were talking about at the time. But those opportunities are rare. I mean, I think GameStop had a short position of well over 100%. Of the shares were short, and that's why that one was so brilliant. But First Majestic being 40% of the float short, I mean, it was a great opportunity.
Yeah. Have you seen similar movements form since? Like meaning like, oh, there's one stock that we're going to target, and everybody just piles on.
That's very common on Wall Street bets in that community. They're always looking for those, but there's never been. And there are minor instances where you see it, but the GameStop one's going to be legendary. Yep. What happened with GameStop? What did it go from like 3 to 400? I mean, come on.
Books are already being written about it. So
yeah, hedge funds going bankrupt over that one. I mean, that was
going
just
short,
brilliant.
like
it's
absolutely
a moment in history.
Absolutely crazy, insane. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. So Wall Street Silver. Let's talk silver. All right.
Okay. I'm a permabull. Going
Perfect.
To 100.
Where are we going? Sorry.
100 by next Tuesday.
By next Tuesday, there you go.
Okay. I'll give you
straight up.
I'll give you your clickbait title right there.
There we go. No, fantastic. But let's look at the fundamentals a little bit, because I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. It feels like silver's lagging behind gold right now. Gold is about 1975. I checked this morning. Silver is 25.35, if I'm not mistaken. But it feels like we're lagging. Like gold is close again. Like it's moving back to the $2,000 level, while silver feels like it's still far, far away from $30.
Yeah,
right?
Right now we're in a monetary issue. It's all about gold. It's all about Russia and what's going on. It's all about what the central banks are doing and interest rates. And we don't yet have that moment, of the precious metal. And we're in a rising interest rate environment right now. Everyone's talking, the Fed's all hawkish. And I think the pivot point, we're waiting for the next pivot point in monetary policy right now. If the Fed, let's say the economy starts tanking, let's say the housing market comes to a halt with, in the United States, the 30-year mortgage is now over 5%. Mortgage refinances are tanking right now. They're down by 60-something% last time I checked. The Fed, at some point, right now the political pressure is based on inflation. The political pressure on the Fed is we must fight inflation. That's number one. But at some point in this process, we're going to see the economy rise to the number one issue. Whether it's the construction market's all slowing down, whether the stock market's down another 20 or 30%, pension funds are, the returns just aren't happening because they're linked to stock markets and bond prices, bond yields. At some point, there's going to be a lot of pressure for the Fed to save the economy, and then they're going to have to make that decision. Do they fight inflation? Do the Paul Volcker route of the late 70s, early 80s, and just crush the economy to kill inflation? Or is the pressure going to be right before the United States has their midterm elections coming up in November? Is the pressure going to be to put back on, feed the juice to the economy, get things rolling again? And if there's that pivot where the Fed can't raise interest rates to fight inflation and they have to apply the juice again, easy money's back. A lot of people think that's the moment where gold and silver will just take off, because then the Fed, it's like we've been saying for months, the Fed's trapped. They have no good options right now. So I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for, is that next Fed pivot.
That's interesting. Like, I think the housing market is going to be instrumental to that, in my opinion, as well. I see that in Germany. I just came back from a trip to Germany, and my brother just bought a house. And if he would have closed the deal like 10 days later, his mortgage rate would have been like 700 euros more a month. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
Right? And that's just very very small amounts of percentage in mortgage interest rates increasing. And that's we see that across the board. Another friend of mine just built a house, and he got lucky. He financed at 0.6% for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I got to refinance. I'm just telling you, like, it's interesting because I like looking at those things. I refinanced my house at 0.9% just recently, but now it's 1.6% again, and even higher. It's trending back to 2.2%. So you're starting to see that at one point you'll hit that inflection point where the housing market, because the Rhine-Main area where I live is completely swept empty. There's no houses available. There's nothing.
I think that's the only thing holding up the housing market right now is lack of supply, because at some point, higher payments. I mean, we've seen some of the quickest increases in rates in history. I mean, I don't have the graph in front of me and I can't share a screen, but this has been one of the quickest increases in rates in all of history that we've observed over the past few months. And at some point, this will affect the housing market. It will affect the prices that people are willing to pay for houses. And when you start seeing that rolling over effect in the housing market, then it becomes sort of a fear. It becomes a fear environment. Oh my God, I need to sell now. Anyone who's thinking about selling is like, oh, this is the peak, this is the tip. And then it just sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I think we're getting to that point. And again, talking from personal experience, I need to sell my second car. And I'm starting to panic a little bit because if I wait till July, I feel like it's too late.
Yeah.
So that's, again, personal experience and what I'm looking at and what I'm seeing right now, right? So, and how it's interesting. But I want to come back to silver. Sorry, went off on a tangent, but I think it's important to talk about real life scenarios, because that really shapes.
These things are all affecting the precious metals market. What's happening in the economy, what's happening to monetary policy, it's all linked to gold and to silver. Silver, of course, I don't have to say it again, but it's an industrial metal and a monetary metal. It has that weird hybrid of both that gold doesn't have, but they follow each other. I mean, it's inevitable.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point, because I mentioned silver is lacking just a little bit. Like, is that because of the industrial metal aspect to it? Is like, why is it not seen as a monetary
well, they
tool?
tried really hard to demonetize silver, really hard. They want to just say, oh, it's just an industrial metal. It's just a strategic metal. But silver market I get it. People are frustrated right now in the short term, but if you look out five. I mean, we've all listened to Keith Neumeyer, and I've interviewed him a number of times about the coming markets for silver. You go out 5 years, and you look at the projections for the solar market, for example. Do you know the solar market we mine roughly 800 million ounces a year of silver right now globally, all the mines combined. You know the silver market's taking up 80 million ounces a year, over 10% of globally mined silver, and that's and it needed 10% of all the silver mined just to reach 2% of the electric grid for solar. And they want to take solar up to 10%, 20% of the electric grid. I'm sorry, there's just not enough silver. I mean, you go out 5 to 10 years on those projections for where they think the solar market's going to be. Solar could consume 400 to 500 million ounces of silver per year like that. Seriously, within the next 5 to 10 years. And I don't think anyone thinks there's that much silver available to be mined each year and still provide all the other, I mean, look, electric vehicles, electronics. I mean, the silver, there's just not even remotely enough silver coming out of the ground for everything that's coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
I have to. I was like, interesting. Like, talk about U.S. dollar a little bit and precious metals, because I've just read a theory yesterday from Ben Johnson that he thinks the U.S. dollar and gold are going to explode in the coming years. While you're more of a like, U.S. dollar is going to like deflate, going to become worthless, and everybody's going to pile into precious metals. Like, why does that not go hand in hand, and where does the contradiction come from? I find that quite interesting, because you guys believe in the same end goal, that gold and precious metals are going higher, but you're getting there a different way.
Well, I mean, the people who believe that, they're looking at DXY, the Dixie chart, and they view that as the dollar. And DXY going up does not equal dollar equals strong. I think a lot of people make that mistake. The DXY, the dollar index, is just a reflection of a basket of currency and how the dollar is doing relative to other currencies. In reality, they're all going down. All fiat currencies are being debased at this point. They're just going down at different rates of collapse. So the dollar DXY going up is not an indication of the dollar being strong. We're all losing purchasing power gradually with, the latest inflation number was 8.5% in the United States. And we all know that that's fake. And it's probably 5%, at least 5% higher, just based on the rental and housing numbers that are artificial in the CPI number. But I would just remind everyone, DXY does not equal dollar strong.
Talk about currencies. Like, it feels like there's a bit of a war going on against the US dollar globally as well, the UN, but even the ruble as well. It's not like there's a war happening in the Ukraine, but it seems like there's also a war happening against the US dollar. Like, oil, gas is being priced not in US dollars anymore. Like, how do you see that part? Like, we briefly talked about it on a phone call yesterday. Like, let's explore that train of thought for a little bit and how that might affect gold and silver.
Well, a lot of the speculation, I talked to everyone. I talked to Mark Faber. I talked to Rick Rule. I talked to Jim Rogers. I talked to I'm blessed that I'm able to talk with all these brilliant people. And just through osmosis, I pick up a little myself just from talking to these guys. But a lot of people are speculating that it was a real mistake what we did with SWIFT to Russia. Russia has $81 trillion worth in reserves in commodities underground. And the world just needs that stuff. We can't live without it. And by kicking Russia off of SWIFT, meaning they can't use euros or dollars in the Western banking system, all we've done by weaponizing SWIFT, by weaponizing the euro and the dollar, we've made a lot of other countries, we've pushed Russia towards China. So all these Russian companies, they're now setting up their banking relationships with Chinese banks right now, Chinese energy traders, Chinese commodity traders. So we've pushed all of that commodity trade away from Western banks at this point. So even if Ukraine gets resolved with a peace treaty, do you think Russia's coming back and going to trust all their reserves in Europe or the United States? As soon as they get access to their reserves again, which will eventually happen, they're yanking it right out of the dollar and the euro, and they're going east. They're going to Asia. And think of all the other countries. We've seen so many bilateral trade deals. Saudi Arabia with Russia, India with Russia. They're all setting up trade settlement in local currencies now. So many countries are shifting away from the euro and the dollar at this point, just for self-preservation, to reduce risk. I mean, we've added a risk element to holding the U.S. dollar. It used to be, oh, it's risk-free. Holding U.S. Treasuries, it's zero risk. There's now a risk involved in the eyes of central bankers around the world. That, oh my God, if we get on the wrong side of the U.S. president or someone in Europe, all of a sudden all our reserves are going to be frozen. I mean, it's a slow process, but it's happening.
So obviously, like the trend to gold and silver just to secure your wealth. Like, would you buy the gold and silver in U.S. dollars? Would you buy it in another currency? Does that make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's got to make that call on their own. I mean,
No, it's interesting. Like, it's an interesting debate, and there's a whole rat tail of like we can discuss afterwards. Like, I've been reading that Russia has been preparing for this for years now, because they sold. I think it's my understanding, and I've got to find the source again. But they sold U.S. Treasury bonds years and years ago. They weren't even holding any, and when the war broke out, so they were fairly independent.
We've all seen this coming since Crimea back in 2014. That, all right, or Russia's been preparing. Yeah, they knew that they were going to have additional issues in Ukraine, ever since 2014. So, yeah, they've been massively building up their gold reserves and reducing their exposure to U.S. Treasuries, and look what's happened. I mean, I find it hilarious, all these articles that we've seen lately of U.S. senators or various different government entities thinking, oh, we've got to block Russian gold. It's like, no, you can't block Russian gold. If Russia needs to sell $5 billion in gold, there's plenty of people in India or China that will take their gold. It's a commodity. There's no counterparty risk. It's like, oh, we're blocking the gold loophole of Russia selling their... No, it's like, I wonder whether our leaders in the West even understand what gold is anymore. I really wonder. I mean, are they just stupid, or are they just, talking to say something? I mean, I really wonder sometimes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I want to use the last 6 minutes though, like to get back to junior mining though. We are fairly junior mining focused, and I just want to get your like feel for the sector a little bit. Like you've been diving into it now for the last 12 months. You've got,
way longer than that.
But like I was just thinking of Wall Street Silver. Sorry, but it's just like, but you've been like the community you've created has grown tremendously. Like, let's talk more about like how do you feel sentiment is right now in the junior mining sector? Like, are we at an inflection point? Are we like? For me, it feels like the juniors are still being beaten up. Should we be euphoric? Like, where are we at, Jim?
I mean, a lot of them. It's individual stocks right now. I mean, when silver gets above 30, when gold gets above 2,100 and starts setting new highs, they're all going to go up. So, but at this point, the ones that move, it's based on drill results, right? It's based on individual companies creating value with amazing drill results. That's the only thing that's going to move. And the market even ignores that sometimes, right? I'm seeing so many companies come out with great drill results, and the market's just like, whatever. But it does happen where some of the only stocks that are moving, it's like new discovery, amazing drill intercept that's just incredibly high grade. Then those stocks can individually take off, but we're not yet at the point where the whole sector just takes off. That's just, we need gold and silver to cooperate at some point for everyone to just take off. But right now it's a stock picker's game. Yeah.
Did you really think like the precious metals are then leading it? Like or is it really just sometimes you want a merger or a transaction to happen that sort of sparks interest? Barrick, Newmont, they're all trading at all-time highs, but the juniors nobody cares about. Right?
Yeah, well, right now they've got great. Those majors have great dividend yields. They're great, incredible cash flow. I mean, here they are whining at 1,950 or 1,975. All those big producers, they're built to be profitable or breaking even at 1,200 gold. So I mean, they're just making incredible cash flow right now. I mean, the highest cash flows they've ever had. In previous cycles, they've had these brief spikes, but they never really got to enjoy it for long periods of time. I mean, I have a position in Kinross. Unfortunately, it was affected by Russia. But Kinross has like paid down all their debt in the past 2 years. It's like they have almost no debt. And when I first bought it, they had no dividend. Now they're paying a nice dividend per every quarter. So they've really got just pristine balance sheets now, the majors, and people are starting to, in a yield-starved world. The major producing gold miners are a great option at this point.
Yeah, I haven't checked on Newmont lately because they ran just like crazy. But at some point, like it feels like 3 months ago, the dividend yield was 4%.
Yeah,
That wasn't that bad. Like, but it still wasn't. It was still oil producer territory, but it was okay for a gold miner. So the question now is, Jim, do you want growth or do you want dividends?
well, my portfolio, if anyone saw it, if a professional financial person saw it, they'd think I'm insane because I'm in all of the most ridiculous exploration junior miner stocks you could imagine. So, but it's I'm practicing what I preach. I'm in it for the most explosive gains possible when this happens.
Yeah.
And I'm even now, anytime I have extra money, I go looking for, all right, I look at my list of probably 30 companies I'm in. I'm like, where do I put it now? Because I'm just, everything I can, I'm putting into the sector because I know it's going to happen. I feel it. And maybe, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm going to need you to delete this video off the internet because I need no evidence. I delete all videos of my projections that go wrong off of YouTube.
Yeah, it's like the $100 gold call. So next week, everybody watch this video now because next week we'll have to probably delete it, eh?
Yeah, better.
Fantastic.
Hey, we'll fix it in edit. Don't worry.
I just want to open the floor real quick. If anybody's got any questions for Jim or myself, just put them in the chat here as well. Happy to ask them. But I just had one great question for you before. Oh, yes. You're US based. Do you do private placements or do you just buy in the market?
I do private placements. I love warrants. So I am, and I did one seed round in a uranium company, Ivor Exploration. That's one that Michael Gentili was the cornerstone investor in. It's a uranium mine in Nevada, a high grade former producer. So mostly gold and silver, but I'm also dipping my toes into uranium right now.
Interesting. Why uranium? Let's use the last 30 seconds on uranium.
I think there's a lot of reasons. Talking with Rick Rule, which a lot of us love to listen to, uranium's got no place to go but up with what's going on in the world. I mean, no one wants to use coal. No one wants to use natural gas. The EU just made uranium a green energy officially. Japan's turning on all their nuclear power plants again. North Korea just today, or not, South Korea just announced that they're rethinking their nuclear strategy. Basically, they're going back nuclear. Everyone's realizing nuclear. If you want to reduce carbon emissions, nuclear, you got to have nuclear in the mix.
Yeah, I think the Netherlands as well just announced the construction of two nuclear plants as well. So that's quite interesting because they're so close to Germany, and we're saying no nuclear. So fantastic. Jim, we got to end it here, unfortunately. Like, we're out of time. It's crazy, like, how time flies. I could chat with you for hours. We got to do this on SF Live maybe next week again and follow up on some of it. Maybe talk some more specific stocks as well. We kept it very general.
I'll have you on my channel, my YouTube channel, Wall Street Silver, and we'll talk some more.
Love that. Thanks so much for being available this morning. I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks for making the time.